They descended upon Earth as a blot of angular darkness that spread across the midday sky, a crowd of obsidian warships blocking the sun. Their arrival was foretold by the abrupt hush of radio chatter and the flicker of satellites crumbling into twisted space junk. On every channel, day or night, a single ultimatum echoed in metallic syllables that seemed older than any human language. You are conquered. Surrender immediately. The voice emanated worldwide, a calm, inhuman authority that brooked no defiance. It was not a question, nor an invitation. To the newly arrived power, Earth was a prize to be claimed. They had circled billions of stars, unveiling and crushing civilizations that did not comply. Countless species had already broken under their dominion, and Earth was merely one more station on their inexorable route. Yet this world's inhabitants were different. The warning they gave boasted no negotiation, no gentle diplomacy, only a brute statement of ownership. But in the breath held between one moment and the next, Earth's people made a decision that would alter the cosmic tapestry forever. They were called the Sinam's Imperative, a conglomerate that proudly traced its lineage back over eons of conquests. In their eyes, the ritual of subjugating new worlds was as old as their star chart. Protocol demanded an offer of peaceful integration, peaceful so long as immediate capitulation was given. If unheeded, the next phase was a swift, brutal demonstration of power. The Imperative believed they were magnanimous. It was easier to rule a living planet than a scorched one. Their behemoth battleships were citadels of technology studded with devastating weapons. The vessel drifting above Earth's orbit was flagship to a fleet that had subjugated countless suns. Each cannon bristling on its hull could wipe out entire cities in a blink. Their standard procedure was simple: broadcast the ultimatum and wait for compliance. Offending garrisons typically cowered within hours, some within minutes of witnessing the Imperative's might. Yet humankind did not cower. From aboard the lead ship, High Marshal Zareth frowned at the flickering transmissions from Earth below. No immediate surrender. Equally disturbing was the brazen surging of local communications. Voices questioning, planning, fueling a defiance that bordered on the unthinkable. At first, the Imperative's scans revealed sheepish creatures scurrying on the planet's surface, powerless to resist the fleet. But something gnawed at Zareth and his council. Typically, the shock of these demonstrations dissolved resistance. This time, Earth's global defenses did not collectively shut down or retreat. Instead, a flurry of scrambled frequencies made analyzing the situation difficult. Drone cameras sweeping the surface found everything from people praying in ancient temples to engineers frantically tinkering with advanced rocket systems. Thousands of Earth satellites had been reduced to slag, but hundreds more remained hidden behind cunning decoy signals. Deep beneath oceans and in the shadows of mountainous terrains, energy readings spiked in ways no conquered species had ever displayed in so short a time. They should be trembling, the Imperative thought, but they weren't. That tiny spark of rebellious resolve sent a ripple through the Svenon War Council. Still, centuries of dominating entire galactic arms gave them unwavering confidence. They assumed Earth was preparing to negotiate, or perhaps staging a short-lived, meaningless stand. They could not imagine that human resolve might hold a deeper secret. When Earth's response came, it arrived not in a single voice but in a chorus of languages woven together by subtle code. Television signals, broadband frequencies, and even archaic radio waves carried the same message: we do not stand down. This is our home. The Imperative had expected a whimper, or at best a plea for mercy. Instead, they received a challenge that bristled with determination. High Marshal Zareth was enraged. The Imperative's recordings would mark this as the first time in thousands of conquests that a species refused to acknowledge their rightful rulers. A typical result of defiance was swift retaliation. Historians within the fleet had no shortage of examples etched into their records. A lesser race that defied them would face waves of orbital plasma bombardment until entire continents were silent. Yet something gave Zareth pause, and his second-in-command, Kesarl, read it in the High Marshal's eyes. This was not bluster on Earth's part. The clarity of the message hummed with an intensity that made the Imperative War Council uneasy, as if Earth had glimpsed a power that the fleet had not accounted for. Behind the scenes, in hidden bunkers across Earth, political leaders and scientists gathered. Communication attendants filtered through. Intelligence gleaned from sporadic bursts. The alien ships carried unstoppable weapons, but they also had vulnerabilities. Captured transmissions hinted at the reliance on advanced gravitational distortion engines. Each destroyer was powered by an exotic matter core. If disrupted, it could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction, one that might also pose unimaginable danger to Earth. Still, humankind had few alternatives. Nations that had been at odds with each other for decades now shared encryption keys and escorted envoys to discuss a single question: how do we survive? Despite centuries of warfare among themselves, humans found unity in the face of a threat from beyond the stars. Engineers from old superpowers joined rebel hackers, pooling resources in newly fortified centers. Cryptographers studied the Imperative's encoded signals, searching for a weak spot. Soldiers from every corner of the globe mobilized, training on new weaponry that fused human ingenuity with any reverse-engineered alien tech gleaned from the debris of downed satellites. The will to resist pulsed through every city, every valley, and every peak. Fear measured heavily on the world, but it was overshadowed by an ironclad refusal to simply bow. The Imperative tried their standard intimidation tactics. A barrage of directed energy beams tore a swath across remote areas, superheating a desert and incinerating abandoned test sites. The demonstration was broadcast to every screen Earth possessed, meant to strike terror into hearts worldwide. Indeed, many trembled. The destruction was apocalyptic. An entire region turned to glass in mere moments. But the Imperative took note. Rather than scatter or descend into chaos, humanity rallied further. Within hours, relief efforts were underway to rescue survivors near the scorched edges. Volunteer brigades formed human chains to deliver medical supplies, blankets, and water. Nations put aside politics to coordinate airlifts, leading newscasters to remark on an unprecedented sense of unity. High Marshal Zarath watched with incredulity as Earth refused to bend. In the council chamber of the flagship, an AI intelligence crafted horrific simulations of devastation, predicting that Earth's will would crumble after a display of annihilating an entire city. Once again, they prepared to intensify the demonstration, choose a target, reduce it to ash. Yet each new measure of force hardened the planet's resolve. To break Earth, the Imperative realized they might need to obliterate the entire biosphere or risk a humiliating stalemate. Meanwhile, Earth prepared a countermove. Deep beneath a labyrinthine mountain fortress, scientists from a coalition of major nations tested a prototype they called the exosphere. Part-shaped electromagnetic pulse, part quantum disruptor, it was designed to exploit the Imperative's exotic matter cores by unleashing a resonance cascade. Human conspiracies about UFOs and recovered alien technology had seeded petty rumors for decades, but now those decades of clandestine research found purpose. The exosphere was a risky device. At best, it could destabilize a portion of the enemy fleet. At worst, it could set off a cosmic chain reaction that might poison near-Earth orbit for centuries. Time was short. The Imperative was clearly losing patience. The question of morality weighed on each scientist's conscience. Was it worth gambling with the planet's safety to avoid subjugation? The answer came from an elderly engineer who had worked on nuclear disarmament decades earlier. We must. We do this, or we lose everything. The group agreed, and they moved forward with chilling resolve. Earth's final stand would be anchored in a weapon born of desperation and daring. The Imperative's next ultimatum was handed down in a hollow, echoing statement broadcast from orbit. You have 2 days to yield or face your destruction. Panic rippled across populations, but governments, seeing no choice, alerted their militaries and braced for the end. In a hidden silo, the exosphere was readied. Remote drones disguised as meteorological probes were positioned in orbit to track Imperative's movements. A single chance existed. If the Imperative's flagship, with the largest exotic matter core, could be disrupted, perhaps the chain of command would fragment, giving Earth an opening. Kesarl, the second in command, suspected the infiltration. He recommended immediate bombardment, but Zareth, still believing in his empire's unstoppable might, decided to let the countdown stand. This proved to be an oversight that would haunt him. The Imperative had grown used to docile worlds that quickly folded under the shadow of star-killing guns, and so they waited, certain that Earth would crack. With each passing hour, Earth's nerves solidified. People lit candles in windows, sending signals of unity. Musicians played defiantly in public squares. In war rooms worldwide, calm reigned, overshadowing fear by the collective determination to remain free. In a testament to human resilience, small communities took it upon themselves to house refugees from already devastated areas. Even in the face of existential crisis, Earth's capacity for compassion shone through. Empowered by their global solidarity, the newly formed Earth Defense Initiative, or EDI, finalized their plan. A stealth craft, shielded by advanced carbon-latticed reflectors, would deliver the exosphere into low orbit near the flagship's underside, where the Imperative's gravitational distortions were known to be thickest. Once in position, the device would auto-activate, unleashing an energy wave designed to scramble the exotic core and, hopefully, cripple the fleet. On the final day before Earth's surrender or destruction, the Imperative launched their largest intimidation strike yet. Several capital ships moved into a lower orbit, threatening to incinerate any location of their choosing. The world watched on every remaining satellite link, but embedded among the swirling debris, drifting under the radar, were Earth's stealth shuttles. They wove a path among the wreckage, using decoy signals to lure away fighter patrols. Kesarl, perched at the sensor station, heard distant pings. Something was off. He alerted the High Marshal again, proposing a preemptive bombardment. Yet Zareth insisted on waiting until the ultimatum expired. The Imperative's doctrine was absolute. Subjugated planets must witness the might of the Imperative according to schedule. Kesarl's sensors continued to prickle. He recognized that Earth's transmissions displayed a cunning pattern. Each second that ticked by felt like a trap closing around them. In the subterranean fortress, technicians performed a final systems check on the exosphere. The device thrummed with an unstable quantum signature. If triggered prematurely, no one could predict the fallout. The possibility of catastrophically warping Earth's own atmosphere loomed, yet a sense of calm permeated every eye that stared at the monitors. This was humanity's make or break ambit. A single tear ran down the face of one young researcher, realizing that if the device malfunctioned, the planet might be destroyed. It was a heavy burden, but they trusted their calculations. Hope and terror coexisted in a fragile equilibrium. Ordnance officers relayed a final "all systems go" to the infiltration team. Above, the stealth craft soared closer to the flagship's underbelly, weaving delicately through the swirl of cosmic particles. With the device primed, each second was an eternity. High above Earth, the countdown in the Sinon Imperative's command module reached its final hour. The War Council set the orbital bombardment parameters. They would begin by incinerating 4 major metropolitan regions. It was a standard tactic to break the planet's spirit by destroying its cultural and economic hearts. Zareth observed the calm below. From the vantage of the flagship's windows, Earth looked serene, layered with blue seas and swirling white clouds. A fleeting thought passed through the High Marshal. It was almost a shame to ruin such a vibrant world. But the Imperative's vow demanded total capitulation. As the timer ticked down to 15 minutes, Kesarl's consoles began squealing with rapid alarm pings. Unidentified energy field forming portside. The readings glowed. Panic flickered in Kesarl's eyes. This was no random solar interference. Zareth barked commands for the defense turrets to power up. "Identify the origin!" Yet it was too late. The stealth craft had moved directly beneath them, and its occupant had released the exosphere. The device shimmered, invisible to standard scanners, but it emitted frequencies that caused immediate havoc in the Imperative's systems. Shield arrays flickered. Beams of raw electricity danced across the hull. Alarms shrieked across every deck. Technicians frantically tried to stabilize the exotic matter core as it began to quake. Within the heart of the flagship, gravitational distortions spun out of control, tearing open pockets of warped space. On Earth's surface, watchers stared at live feeds, seeing the mighty Imperative warships begin to list and drift. A hush fell on humanity as the phenomenon spread. One by one, the smaller ships that were tethered to the flagship's gravitational anchor lost their balance, drifting into chaotic orbits. The exosphere had done its job. Space itself seemed to bend and shift around the behemoth structures. Perhaps for the first time in their countless conquests, the Imperative tasted chaos they could not master. The next moments were chaos. A massive gravitational rippled wave cascaded from the flagship's engine core. Hurtling outward, this cosmic quake battered Earth's upper atmosphere, knocking out the last few satellites of global broadcasting. For a few harrowing seconds, entire continents went dark. The arrow of energy raced across the sky, visible to the naked eye as a multicolored aurora of swirling ribbons. Air traffic controllers scrambled as airplanes experienced sudden turbulence. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station, hidden from direct detection, felt the station groan with unnatural torque. Deep-sea sensors recorded fluctuations in the Earth's crust. On the Imperative flagship, entire decks collapsed inward as gravitational forces tore them apart. Emergency bulkheads sealed off ruptured compartments. Kesarl's final view was an expanding swirl of cosmic distortion flooding in from the corridor. He gave a silent curse to the Imperative's arrogance before disappearing in a violent flash. The center of the flagship erupted in a silent burst of energy, blossoming in the vacuum like a black flower. When the dust cleared, Earth braced to see if the rest of the Imperative fleet would retaliate. Many of the capital ships, unmoored from their command structure, drifted aimlessly. Some managed to stabilize, but their leadership was gone, annihilated in an instant. Surviving Imperative captains attempted to rally, but fresh waves of Earth's makeshift defenses targeted them relentlessly. Nations launched ballistic missiles outfitted with newly crafted warheads that carried fragments of the exosphere's technology. Pirate transmissions jammed the Imperative channels, filling their communication grid with decoys. One by one, Sinon ships took heavy hits. The unstoppable Empire found itself grappling with a foe that refused to follow the script, that used cunning teamwork to exploit every vulnerability. The unstoppable force began to stall. A handful of Imperative vessels escaped the fiasco, jumping to faster than light speeds with words of Earth's defiance etched in their logs. The rest were destroyed or captured in orbits that decayed toward the planet, forced to make emergency landings or crash in remote wastelands. Across Earth's surface, dawn came with an unexpected calm. The first rays of sunlight revealed the broken silhouettes of alien warships sinking through the atmosphere. Their arrogance dashed against humanity's resolve. In the aftermath, global tragedies were still numerous. The desert expansions lay scorched, entire regions uninhabitable. Some coastal cities saw vaulting tidal waves as the planet's tectonic plates responded to brief gravitational distortions. Tens of thousands lost their lives in the conflict. In the battered remains of the alien flagship that had crashed into the Pacific, salvage teams discovered horrifying truths. Evidence of enslaved species used as living reactors, grotesque experiments, and weapons that could unravel matter at a fundamental level. Though battered and mourning, humanity emerged with an even stronger sense of unity and purpose. No longer were they simply Earth's billions of separate souls. They were a single coalition that had confronted a threat from beyond the stars and survived through sheer ingenuity, defiance, and collaboration. The battered survivors recognized that to safeguard their planet, they had to remain adept and prepared. They had to learn from the Imperative's shattered technologies, forever watchful for the next wave of cosmic danger. Some of the captured Imperative vessels were taken to newly established research installations. Surviving Imperative crew members were detained, baffled over their humiliating defeat. The concept that Earth refused to surrender so thoroughly had shaken them to the core. Attempts at interrogation revealed how the Empire functioned, the vast reach of the Snenon Imperative stretching across multiple galaxies. Earth might have defeated one armada, but the Imperative's dominion was wide. The new question was how many more identically unstoppable fleets lurked among the stars, awaited future expansions, and might one day return for retribution. On Earth, there was no time for complacency. The architecture of space defense became a worldwide project. Former rival nations now collaborated to repair the damage and fortify the orbital ring with next-level detection systems. Former enemies found themselves forging an alliance to ready Earth for the possibility of a second wave. In what remained of major cities, spontaneous celebrations erupted, turning ruins into sites of communal resilience. People lit lanterns that glowed in the dusk, each a symbol of those lost as well as the hope for what might come. Artists covered walls with murals depicting humanity's stand against the Snenon behemoths. Capturing both the tragedy and defiance, from the rubble emerged a collective sense of optimism, for they had accomplished the impossible. They had stared down a mighty galactic power and won. Leaders, once obsessed with national pride, began joint cabinet meetings to draft a single planetary oath to defend life. Diplomatic channels opened unlike any decades prior. Perhaps it took an alien invasion for humans to tear down the final barriers between them. In the stirring sunrise of a battered world, a new era dawned, shaped by unbreakable solidarity and a vow to resist any hand that dared subjugate the Earth. Word of Earth's victory spread further than the Imperative might have liked. Escaped Imperials, limping back toward the cosmic center, carried logs of the fiasco. A rumor took root among the energies of interstellar politics that an unrefined, upstart species on a small blue planet had not only refused the Imperative's ultimatum, but actually destroyed their lead fleet. Among other subdued civilizations, under the Imperative's leash, hope flickered. Perhaps the Empire could be challenged. Perhaps the unstoppable machine was not invincible. Whispers of rebellion, once unthinkable, began to rustle in distant star systems. For the first time in many centuries, the Imperative's hold on fringe worlds grew tenuous. Commissars reported minor insurrections, sabotage of key supply lines, and an unsettling shift in local attitudes. The synergy of fear that had once kept these galaxies in line faltered. In under a year, the Imperative found itself dealing with the question, had their unstoppable reign just met the seeds of its demise? On the edge of a spiral arm of a modest star, around a maverick planet hosting a species that refused to kneel? On Earth, the events of the invasion became known simply as the Snenon War. Courses on the war soon appeared in every major university, analyzing how Earth's fractious histories had perversely prepared them for a high-stakes stand. Nations that had once quibbled over border disputes realized the futility of narrow thinking. Those who had long championed pacifism found common ground with realists, acknowledging the necessity of vigilance. Crafting a new identity, Earth built a defense coalition that encompassed not just armed might, but also scientific exploration, forging connections with other sentient species that might also harbor life beyond local star systems. Though no official contact had been made except with the Imperative, curiosity thrived. If the Empire was out there, who else might be? So Earth turned its gaze outward. Not in fear, but in anticipation of forging alliances to resist tyranny. Reconstruction took decades. Islands flattened by tidal surges were slowly reclaimed. Desert wastelands still radiated lethal heat from the Imperative's initial demonstration. The glow of the exosphere's after effects lingered in some corners of orbit, causing gravitational hiccups that made space travel precarious. Despite these hardships, Earth's shared vision held firm. Young scientists pursued degrees in advanced propulsion, chanting a single driving motto: "Never again will we be caught unprepared." Salvaged Imperative warp engines were studied, deciphered piece by piece. The technology spurred a leap in human innovation, bridging quantum physics and advanced engineering. Within years, Earth launched its first generation of star-capable vessels, smaller than the Imperative's behemoths, but nimble and bristling with newly minted resonant disruptors. What had begun as a purely defensive endeavor soon kindled the flicker of exploration. Some argued that Earth should stay hidden, to not poke the sleeping giant. Others insisted that the only safety lay in bold expansion, forging alliances, or at least discovering the truth of the galaxy at large. Tensions rose again when a small fleet of Imperative scouts re-entered the solar system, presumably on a reconnaissance mission. This time, Earth was ready. With cruiser craft stationed around the moon, armed with hypervelocity cannons adapted from the exosphere's breakthroughs, the scouts never stood a chance. They were met by a wave of unstoppable fire that neutralized their thrusters in minutes. Whether survivors managed to flee or not, the encounter reaffirmed Earth's hardened stance. They would not be easy prey. Stories reached the rest of the Imperative across the void, sowing further uncertainty. Under cover of secrecy, some fringe systems rebelled, smashing the Empire's garrisons and claiming independence. Earth defiance had echoed far beyond the star system, igniting a revolution that had simmered silently for millennia. Indeed, a single spark could light 1,000 fires in the right conditions. Unbeknownst to billions, Earth's most potent legacy was just beginning to unfold. A new chapter of cosmic upheaval, taking root in the council halls of alien races who had never known freedom. Back on Earth, new voices emerged in science, art, and policy. Philosophers challenged humanity's place in the universe. If Earth could challenge a galactic empire, what responsibilities did that victory entail? Some demanded that humanity pursue war to liberate other worlds. Others, more cautious, sought diplomatic solutions, hoping to sabotage the Imperative from within. Secret enclaves developed, infiltration programs to seed rebellious knowledge among enslaved star systems, broadcasting subversive signals. The exiled Imperative captives, once sure of their empire's omnipotence, grew silent. Their worldview shattered as they watched a determined planet unify and transform. They saw their greatest warships dissected and reassembled into Earth's new frontier fleet. Mirroring the old Earth adage, adapt or perish, humanity had not only survived, but thrived under pressure. Amid these grand transformations, a quiet nostalgia lingered in the hearts of many. Theron recalled the simpler days before the invasion, when quarrels were earthly concerns rather than cosmic. Soldiers who had lost dear friends and family pointed their eyes skyward, remembering the cost of survival. Students reading about the Imperative War gasped when they learned how close the planet had come to annihilation. Monuments commemorating the fallen dotted the landscape. Overshadowed by the towers of the new spaceports, the memorials served as a reminder to never take peace for granted, to never forget the sacrifices that wove the tapestry of Earth's victory. Historians reevaluated every conflict leading up to that day, concluding that, ironically, it was humanity's fractious, war-torn upbringing that taught them how to stand firm against a superior foe. Millions prayed, some to old gods, some to new ones, and some simply to the resilience of the human spirit. If the cosmic stage was set for future conflict, Earth's part in that stage would be shaped by the lessons of unity. And so, a battered yet unbowed planet awaited whatever the stars might bring. A new generation, raised on tales of Earth's defiance, prepared themselves in academies built under sky domes that displayed swirling galaxies. In dusty corners of the globe, storytellers passed down the saga of how Earth said no to an ultimatum from an empire that had spanned centuries. Their words were not merely a boast. They carried a warning. The cost of freedom is immense. They also carried a promise, the cost is worth paying. Scientists refined the exosphere's derivatives, trying to rein in its destructive potential for more tactical usage. Explorers mapped new wormhole corridors, seeking vantage points from which they could monitor incoming threats. Diplomatic channels whispered of forging alliances before any second wave arrived, but overshadowing every plan and every dream was the knowledge that Earth had forced one of the galaxy's mightiest powers to rethink the assumption that no one would ever dare resist. It was a staggering realization, one that transformed the planet's sense of identity. In time, the date of the Imperative's final ultimatum became an international holiday. With joy tempered by mourning, people gathered to remember the day Earth refused surrender. The solemn sunrise memorials bore wreaths on the glistening plains of glass left behind by alien weaponry, representing life reborn from devastation. Ceremonies ended with fireworks that soared high and burst in colorful brilliance, a testament to overcoming the darkness that had once loomed overhead. The broadcast of a small child reciting the defiant phrase, "This is our home," captured hearts worldwide, reaffirming something that could never be extinguished. The echo of that simple statement stood as the greatest line of defense, more powerful than any superweapon. Earth, with all its flaws and wonders, was worth fighting for. Beyond the star-washed gulf, the Imperative reeled, forced to reckon with rebellion on the outskirts of its domain. Administrators replaced certain policies with more careful expansions. The humiliating defeat near Earth was catalogued in their archives, but no longer could they hide the incident under a cloak of secrecy. Whispers grew that someday they would retaliate with renewed force. However, the seeds of freedom were already planted among the lesser worlds. The Imperative's thirst for subjugation was met with resistance wherever they turned. Over time, their fleets stretched thin, supplies ran scarce, and new warlords vied for dominance within their fracturing empire. What had once been unstoppable began to crack. In the background, Earth's name was uttered across star systems that had never dared dream of liberation. The story became a rallying cry. If this small, unassuming planet could stand so defiantly, perhaps anyone could. Meanwhile, humanity stood watchful, no longer content to be a mere observer in a galaxy roiled with strife. Scouting craft ventured to the edges of interstellar space. Diplomatic ships, armed but open-handed, traveled to rumored enclaves of free societies. They offered alliances, sharing what they had learned about ways to resist the Imperative's technology. The once isolated Earth was no longer a quiet backwater. They had, through adversity, become a beacon of rebellion to distant worlds, and for the first time in memory, the Imperative found its expansion slowed, its cruelty questioned, and its frontiers igniting. A wave of cosmic change had begun, and the humans, with their ragtag resilience, had lit the fuse. Though Earth's future was anything but certain, the transformation was undeniable. Magellan Station above the Atlantic soared as a sign of that shift, hosting scholars from every land who studied artifacts taken from the Imperative. The station's library was filled with archived transmissions, some of them from newly contacted species. Generations of Earth children sat in zero-gravity classrooms, their eyes wide with wonder, learning that their home was not a solitary globe in the void, but part of a living galaxy. Their textbooks described how a simple refusal to bow had awakened hope across distant suns. Throughout it all, the exosphere's legacy cast a sobering shadow, reminding everyone that the horrifying power harness could be turned inward if humanity's unity ever fractured again. Potential, both bright and dark, defined this new cosmic era. Humanity understood that there would be no easy road ahead, that those who had once demanded their surrender might well return in even greater force. But they also knew how to face the impossible, how to marshal their collective will in the face of tyranny. Their response had shaken an empire. It had called forth a revolution beyond the stars. If the Imperative sought to test Earth again, they would find a planet no longer naive, no longer divided. Hope and vigilance, fear and courage, It was all part of the tapestry now, and so they waited, preparing for whatever message the darkness beyond might bring. Should the question come again, surrender, Earth's answer would reverberate with the same indomitable spirit that had once toppled foreign fleets and painted the night sky with the colors of defiance. A single word, echoing in the hearts and minds of a species that had forged unity out of chaos. No.